Hello, everyone. It is Friday, December 14th, 2018. This is sig-aws, our bi-weekly meeting. I am your moderator, facilitator, Justin Santa Barbara. I work at Google. There is a link to the agenda in the calendar invite and in the chat. If you would like to talk about anything that's not on the agenda, please do add it. It's great. That way we can see what we can be sure to reach everything. And if you would like to, feel free to add your name to the attendees list so that everyone sort of knows who you are and can correlate names to people. And a reminder that this meeting is recorded and will be put on the internet in due course. I do expect that this is going to be a fairly light agenda and attendance, given that most KubeCon ended last night. So most people are probably traveling or generally probably KubeConned out. So I put one item on the agenda, which was, if it's handy for people, I can give we gave a sig-aws update. I can give a 2-minute version of that or a longer version of that, but I can give a 2-minute version of that and we can do questions. And it looks like Micah has excellently put AWS IAM Authenticator update on there, which will be wonderful to hear because we were a little bit light in our sig-aws update on that front. For pods, thank you, Micah. Sorry, I see you live editing me. Anyway, another update from Micah is scheduled, and I have put links to the slides in there. If people would prefer to just sort of go at their own pace, and the video will be posted. I don't know if anyone has any objection. Oh, wow. Looks like actually most people here might have been there on Wednesday. So maybe I will give a 1-minute summary, just to give us something to sort of kick off any questions, which is, I think the big thing we talked about was a lot of progress in sig-aws, but almost entirely happening outside of KK. I think there are at least 5 sub-projects of sig-aws, which are moving rapidly from alpha to GA. See if I can remember them all. There is the ALB ingress controller, the CSI driver, the external cloud provider. There's a lot of testing efforts. I'm actually flipping through the slides. The AWS encryption provider, the IAM authenticator, and a cluster API implementation for AWS, as well as EKS Cuddle happening as well. And there are test results being reported in TestGrid, which has been done by AWS, I believe. So thank you for that. I will put a representative link in the chat, but I think we're sort of doing better at following processes. We're doing more KEPs and being more rigorous about the project management, which I don't see Nishi here, but that's mostly Nishi's hard work. So thank you, Nishi, for that. And it's great to see the test results going into TestGrid. So a ton happening, mostly outside of KK, Kubernetes, the sort of primary monorepo. And the intention is obviously to break that up. And we have lots of sub-projects that are progressing nicely, I'd say. I don't know if anyone wanted to comment on anything or next agenda item then. Yes, the video will be posted. I don't know exactly when, but I presume within the next week or 2 weeks, or let's say by the beginning of next year would be my guess. And yes, it's KubeCon was good this year. So much to do, and I have a lot of videos to watch myself. All right, Micah, do you want to do the next item?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, KubeCon was great. There were so many times where there were like 4 talks that I wanted to go to that were running concurrently, and so I'm going to have to catch up on a lot of videos. So yeah, I wanted to give kind of a community update in this SIG, just about what we're sort of thinking through and working through. I know there was a KEP earlier, kind of around IAM auth for pods. And all those approaches so far have just been really metadata based, using EC2 metadata or proxying it or overriding it. And so we'll have a blog post about this soon, but we've been talking with a lot of members of the community, with sig-aws as well, working with them on our approach for this. And so I'll kind of give a high level overview. Is basically we want to use the new projected service account token feature, which gives basically Kubernetes gives out an OIDC token to your pod. that's used instead of using this type of service account token against the Kubernetes API. It can be used with AWS. So AWS has a existing feature for that's OIDC federated identities, meaning it's similar to SAML. So it was designed for human users to be able to do their corporate OIDC auth and then get an identity in AWS. But we're sort of using that same, instead of using OAuth and OIDC, we're just using the fact that Kubernetes issues OIDC tokens and be registering Kubernetes in AWS as an identity provider, so that your pods can take the token that they're given and assume an AWS role. So we'll have a lot more details about that soon, about like what the sort of the tech flow, like the workflow behind that is, and then what the user interaction story is and everything. But and again, I'll have a KEP about that too. There's actually really good conversations we had with the Google folks at KubeCon working on this feature, because there's similar interest in doing sort of the same kind of thing for them. So if we can say AWS and the Google folks can get on the same train about this, it could set a really nice standard for sort of clouds in general, that or just off-flow in general, where if you want a pod to get credential to some other system, whether it could be Vault, it could be something else, doing a very similar flow. So more about that later, but just wanted to kind of see the community. So this is known as something that we're working on and investing in.
That is an exciting update. I'm happy both to hear it and to hear that you are working with Google, who I think you're doing some cool stuff. So I'm glad we're sort of trying to get everyone on the same page, because it is a little new, and so we don't want to all like have a different approach, I think. But
right.
My understanding is it basically lets the AWS APIs trust Kubernetes service accounts. Would be sort of how I would.
That's right. Yeah, you'd have to have a specific audience binding for AWS, but yes, that's how it would work. And the other note about this is that the SDKs, the AWS SDKs, would be updated with this new basically auth mechanism to say, here's the role I want, here's a service account file, assume this role with this web identity. It's just, if you want to look it up, it's a STS API assume role with web identity. So you can kind of look more there.
Would this supersede the need for something like kube.iam?
Yep, this would totally replace kube.iam, KIM, all those. So you would right now the difficult part with those is that you have to sort of have a trusted process in your cluster, whether it's your node or with KIM, like a control process. And with this, yeah, you wouldn't have to. You could, once this is totally rolled out, you could essentially have an untrusted a node with with even no IAM credentials, or no IAM permissions, we'll put it that way. Yeah. And the other side to note about this is that the trust is different than in KIM or kube.iam. Instead of annotating your pod with, here's the role I want to assume, and just implicitly trusting that that's pod has permission, you'd edit the AWS IAM trust policy on the role. To say this service account on this cluster can assume the role.
Wow. So so this isn't a daemon set like that would. I mean, this is totally on the AWS side. So completely.
It's a mashup of Kubernetes feature plus AWS existing AWS APIs.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Cool.
And I think a blog post is definitely the way to kick this off, because it is definitely hard to understand. I'm not sure I fully understand it yet.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely have a blog post, and we'll probably have a KEP too, because that way we can sort of have a community place to align around this. I was originally sort of thinking that might be a sig-aws KEP, because we don't want this to just be for EKS. We want this to also be if you're running kops or your own cluster. That, I mean, you could even hypothetically, if you had enough control over whether it's your on-prem cluster or even your other cloud provider cluster, you could get AWS credentials in your cluster by trusting that specific Kubernetes cluster. So we'll probably open this up as a sig-auth KEP, just so that we can get more broad eyes on it than just sig-aws, but we'll definitely post that and bring that up here so that people here can take a look at that and give input and feedback.
think that makes sense. If there is going to be it sounds like there might not even be a AWS specific sub project in the Kubernetes space, but if there is, I think we'd be open to it. But
yeah, the place I would see for a SIG AWS sub project would be around the AWS specific APIs. So specifically, this is getting a little more into it, but with OIDC, you have RSA or ECDSA keys that are signing keys. And right now, most people probably never rotate their service account key. But these OIDC keys are designed, like for these projected service account volumes, are designed to sort of be rotated. And so I could see there being a rotation sort of helper project that helps rotate the keys for the API server, but also you would need you need to expose those keys to SCS somehow. You need a JSON endpoint that SCS can access to say, here's the RSA keys for this cluster. So that could be it could be a SIG AWS, it could be sig-aws, but yeah.
That's great. I think that's a great, thank you for that update. And any time frame on when we should look for the blog post?
I am hoping this week.
Okay, soon. So like,
yes,
very
very
our
soon.
next meeting, which may be in 2 weeks or maybe in 4 weeks. So
yeah, it depends on sort of the holiday blog
cadence.
schedule. But I'd like to get that out sooner than later.
Wonderful.
Yep. Yeah, and if anyone has any feedback, please let me know. I'd love to talk through it. I know there's been questions about like cross account role assumption, because a lot of people do that with KIM or QIM. So we're still sort of working through what that would look like. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Micah. We have reached the end of our formal agenda. I don't know if anyone else has anything they would like to discuss or any follow-on points, or whether we are and give everyone 44 minutes back.
Great, thanks.
All right, yeah, looks gone. Thank you so much. See you. Oh, I don't know if we should do a meeting in 2 weeks or not. Would anyone show up, or is everyone on holiday on the 28th of December? I will probably cancel it. I think we're not going to make any
probably safely.
I don't think anything is going to change in the next 2 weeks. So
between KubeCon and the holiday, I think there's probably not a lot going on.
All right, well then I think this wraps up SIG AWS for 2018, and we will see everyone in the new year.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks.